She woke up to the sound of rain tapping gently against the window. It was the kind of morning where everything felt heavier than usual. The curtains hung loosely, allowing the gray light to fill the room, and she stayed lying there for a long time, staring at the ceiling, trying to gather the strength to get out of bed. The pillow still smelled faintly of him, though he had been gone for months. She closed her eyes and let the memory wash over her. Painful and warm all at once. Her apartment was quiet, except for the rain and the occasional rumble of a passing car. She wrapped herself in the blanket and thought about the small tasks she had to face: making breakfast, going to work, answering messages. Simple things, but they felt like mountains. Every corner of the room reminded her of what she had lost, and every sound seemed to echo with it. She could almost hear his laugh, see the smile she used to know so well. When she finally rose, she moved slowly, almost mechanically. Her feet touched the cold floor and she shivered. She poured herself a cup of tea, the aroma filling the small kitchen. Normally this would have been comforting, but today it felt hollow. She stared at the steam rising from the cup, remembering the mornings they had shared. The way he would make her laugh over something silly, and how she had taken it all for granted. The mirror in the bathroom reflected someone she barely recognized. Her hair was a mess, eyes puffy from crying the night before. And there was a shadow over her face that hadn't been there before. She reached out, touching her reflection, as if trying to find a connection to herself. She whispered her name softly, not expecting an answer. The silence that followed was deafening. But it was the only answer she could rely on. Her job offered some distraction, but even there she felt distant. People talked around her, laughed, and moved with purpose, but she felt frozen in time. She walked through the office corridors like a ghost, offering polite nods and half-hearted smiles. Every email she sent, every document she handled seemed meaningless. Her mind kept drifting back to him, to what was lost. To the empty space that had become her life. At lunch, she walked to a small park nearby. The rain had stopped, leaving the grass wet and sparkling with droplets. She sat on a bench, hugging her knees, and watched people pass by. Families with children, couples holding hands, friends laughing together. Each sight felt like a reminder of what she couldn't have, of the love that had left her life suddenly, leaving a hollow ache. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe through it. But the heaviness wouldn't lift. Back at the apartment in the evening, she tried to distract herself with a book, but the words blurred on the page. The quiet of the room pressed down on her, and she realized how much she had isolated herself. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. Friends had tried to reach out, but she pushed them away. It's not out of malice, but because it was too hard to explain the emptiness inside. She felt trapped in a world that continued without her, a world that had moved on while she remained stuck. Night came. She found herself lying on the bed again, staring at the ceiling. The darkness was both comforting and terrifying. She remembered the last conversation they had, the arguments that seemed so important at the time, and the words that were left unsaid. Regret twisted inside her, sharp and relentless. She wished she could go back, change things, hold on tighter, love better. But time had moved forward, and she was left with nothing but memories and a deep, aching sorrow. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams where he was still there. Sometimes he smiled at her, sometimes he walked away, leaving her reaching out into nothing. Each time she woke, the reality hit harder. She sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing her face, trying to will the tears away. But they came anyway, because grief could not be tamed. Only carried days turned into weeks, and the routine of sorrow continued. She found small ways to cope: long walks, writing in a journal, listening to music that mirrored her mood. Friends noticed the change, the quiet withdrawal, and offered support, but it was a delicate balance. She wanted to accept their help, but she also feared letting anyone too close, afraid of exposing the fragile pieces of herself that had been shattered. One rainy afternoon, she found herself sitting at a cafe, staring out at the wet streets. People rushed by, umbrellas in hand, and she felt like an observer in someone else's life. She sipped her coffee slowly, lost in thought. A stranger at the next table smiled at her by accident, and for a brief moment, she felt a flicker of connection. It was fleeting, almost absurd, but it reminded her that the world was still alive around her. Even if she felt frozen, she started noticing little things more keenly, the way sunlight reflected off puddles, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, the laughter of children playing outside. These small moments didn't erase the pain, but they reminded her that life continued, indifferent yet beautiful. She held on to them, tiny anchors in the storm of her grief. At night, she would light a candle in the quiet apartment. The soft glow seemed to hold back the darkness, if only for a little while. She spoke to him sometimes, whispering into the shadows as if he could hear her. She told him about her day, her fears, her small victories. It was silly, maybe, but it made her feel less alone. The hardest moments were the memories she could not escape. Music, smells, places all carried echoes of him. She learned to live with them, letting the tears flow when needed, laughing quietly at the memories that brought a bittersweet smile. She started to understand that healing didn't mean forgetting, but rather learning to carry the pain without letting it consume her. There were nights when the weight of grief was almost unbearable. She would sit by the window, watching the rain, feeling the emptiness press down on her chest. But slowly, imperceptibly, something began to shift. A small spark of resilience, a quiet voice inside that whispered, "You will live through this. You will feel again." The days were long, and the nights longer. But she began to take tiny steps, answering a friend's call, going out for a walk, trying to engage with the world around her. She discovered that sorrow could coexist with moments of peace, that pain could soften with time, and that she was capable of enduring more than she had imagined. By the end of the month, she could look at herself in the mirror without immediately turning away. The reflection was still tinged with sadness, but it also held strength. She realized that life had not ended with loss. It had only begun a new, difficult chapter. And though the ache of missing him would always remain, she could now imagine a future where joy and love might one day return. She closed her eyes that night, the candle flickering beside her, and allowed herself a deep breath. Somewhere inside, the first fragile tendrils of hope were stirring. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew that she could face it, one step at a time. Pain had been her teacher, grief her companion, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the end of one chapter hinted at the beginning of another. The morning sunlight seeped through the blinds, painting golden stripes across the floor. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the light, feeling both comforted and unsettled. The last month had been a blur of sorrow and small victories, but today something felt different. She had promised herself to step a little further into life, to see if the world still held moments worth noticing. She walked to the small market nearby, the streets bustling with the usual morning rush. People hurried past, faces focused on their own lives, conversations blending into a constant hum. She moved slowly, observing rather than participating, until a soft voice startled her. "Excuse me, do you know where the bakery is?" The man looked uncertain, holding a map upside down. There was something in the gentle hesitation of his tone that made her smile despite herself. Without thinking, she pointed down the street. "Just past the corner. You'll see it on your left," he thanked her, and for a moment they exchanged a look that felt more meaningful than it should. She went on her way, but a small warmth lingered, an unfamiliar but welcome sensation. It was not love, not yet, but a reminder that human connection still existed at work. The day passed in its usual rhythm, but she found herself replaying the encounter. That brief interaction, simple as it was, reminded her that she had been avoiding people for too long. She started noticing little things, a colleague's friendly nod, the way someone smiled across the room, the quiet kindness in small gestures. She began responding in kind, cautiously, testing the waters of social interaction again. During lunch, she wandered to a quiet park she had never visited. The pond reflected the blue sky, and ducks glided lazily across the surface. She sat on a bench and watched a mother teach her child to skip stones. The child laughed, squealing as the stones bounced and splashed. She felt a faint tug in her chest, not the sharp pain of loss, but something softer, a gentle longing for connection. She took out her notebook and started jotting thoughts, a habit she had neglected for too long. Writing made the world feel less distant, and she could almost hear her own voice again. The following week brought small surprises. She discovered a little bookstore tucked between two larger shops. The smell of paper and ink was intoxicating, and she found herself browsing for hours. A man behind the counter noticed her lingering and offered a suggestion for a new book. Their conversation was light, but it left her smiling long after she left. For the first time in months, she felt an inkling of curiosity, a spark that life might still offer unexpected joys. One rainy afternoon, she ducked into a cafe to escape the sudden downpour. The cafe was warm and cozy, filled with the aroma of coffee and baked goods. She found a corner table and watched the rain streaking the windows. A young woman approached, noticing her sketchpad, and asked if she could look. They struck up a conversation about art and favorite places to draw. It was casual, yet meaningful. She realized that opening herself to others didn't have to be frightening. It could be rewarding. Weeks passed, and the encounters multiplied, small but significant. A smile exchanged with a neighbor, a shared laugh with a coworker, a nod of recognition from the barista, who always remembered her order. Each moment felt like a thread, stitching her back into the fabric of life. The pain of loss still lingered, but it was no longer all-consuming. There was room for something else, room for growth. One evening, she walked home through the quiet streets. She saw the man from the market again. This time, he noticed her before she could notice him, and he waved awkwardly. They exchanged greetings, then fell into easy conversation. His presence was comforting yet unfamiliar, like the first light of morning after a long, dark night. He wasn't a replacement for what she had lost. He was simply a reminder that life moved forward and that human connection could appear when least expected. They began to see each other occasionally, running into each other at the bookstore, the cafe, or while walking through the park. Each meeting was casual, with laughter and shared stories. She felt a cautious sense of trust forming, a fragile openness she hadn't felt in a long time. She was wary of letting herself hope too much, but the joy of companionship, even in small doses, was undeniable. At home, she reflected on the changes. Her apartment no longer felt like a tomb of memories. Instead, it was a place where she could breathe and think. She cleaned the corners she had neglected, rearranged the furniture, and even added a small plant by the window. The act of nurturing life, however small, made her feel alive again. It was a reminder that she could care for herself and that the world still offered beauty and warmth. Nights became easier. She no longer spent hours lying awake, reliving memories that brought tears. Instead, she allowed herself to write, to draw, to dream about the future. Sometimes the man from the market would send a simple message asking if she wanted to grab coffee or walk in the park. She would smile, feeling anticipation without fear, and realize that life could include joy again. The turning point came unexpectedly. One sunny afternoon, she joined him for a walk along the river. The water sparkled, and the breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. They spoke about their lives, their dreams, the small worries that usually went unspoken. There was no rush, no pressure, just the gentle unfolding of a connection. She realized that her heart, once closed and guarded, was beginning to open again. The walls she had built to protect herself were slowly crumbling, brick by brick, revealing a readiness to experience trust and affection once more. During these weeks, she also reconnected with friends she had distanced herself from. Conversations felt easier now, and laughter returned to her life. The combination of new connections and rekindled friendships created a delicate balance. She was learning that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant carrying it with her while allowing new experiences to shape her life. As days blended into nights, she noticed a subtle shift in her mindset. She no longer dreaded mornings, nor did she feel suffocated by silence. Instead, she welcomed each day with cautious optimism, knowing that life had surprises in store. The rain still reminded her of sorrow, but it also brought renewal. Washing away the remnants of hopelessness, she began setting small goals, simple yet meaningful. Visiting the park daily, finishing a book, sketching every day, and spending moments connecting with people around her. Each accomplishment, no matter how minor, brought a sense of pride and self-respect. She felt capable of living fully again, not as a shadow of her past, but as someone resilient and aware of the fragility and beauty of life. One evening, sitting by the window and watching the city lights shimmer in the rain-soaked streets, she reflected on the unexpected encounters that had started to change her life. It wasn't a grand gesture or dramatic event that shifted her path. It was small acts of kindness, chance meetings, and the gentle persistence of connection. Life had begun to seep back into her days, and with it, a faint but undeniable sense of hope. She knew the pain would never fully disappear, and she didn't want it to. Pain had taught her empathy, resilience, and the depth of her own capacity to feel. But now, alongside the pain, there was something else: an openness to life, to connection, to moments of joy. It was fragile, yes, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, she felt she could trust that the world still held possibilities worth embracing. The man from the market became a gentle presence in her life. Not a savior or a replacement, just someone who reminded her that people could care without expectation, that life could offer warmth even after loss. Their friendship grew naturally, filled with laughter, shared stories, and quiet moments of understanding. She learned that letting someone in didn't erase grief. It simply made the burden lighter. By the end of part 2, she felt the first glimmers of emotional renewal. Life was no longer defined solely by the shadow of what she had lost. There was room for hope, for trust, and perhaps one day for love. She didn't rush the process. She embraced it slowly, letting each small connection and each gentle moment guide her forward. In that quiet unfolding, she discovered that pain could coexist with joy, and that endings sometimes made way for new beginnings. The days grew warmer as spring slowly claimed the city. She woke up one morning to birds singing outside her window, their chirping louder than she remembered. There was a lightness in the air, an invitation to step further into life. She stretched, taking a deep breath, and realized she no longer felt the same crushing heaviness as before. The pain was still there, but it was softer now, like a distant echo. She got dressed, not out of obligation, but with a sense of purpose, at work. She began noticing moments of joy that had previously gone unnoticed. A colleague shared a funny story from the weekend, and she laughed genuinely for the first time in weeks. Another coworker asked for help on a project, and she offered it gladly. These small acts of engagement, previously impossible, reminded her that she was still capable of connecting with the world around her. During lunch breaks, she continued her walks in the park, watching life move around her. She observed families, couples, and friends, but now with a sense of curiosity rather than envy. Sometimes she carried a small sketch pad, drawing the scenes she found beautiful or interesting. It was not about perfection. It was about feeling present. Each stroke of the pencil on paper felt like reclaiming a piece of herself she had thought lost. Her encounters with the man from the market grew more frequent. They met at the bookstore, the cafe, and sometimes by chance while walking through the park. Their conversations flowed easily, touching on everything from favorite books to childhood memories. She realized that she looked forward to these meetings, not with desperate longing, but with a quiet happiness. Trust was slowly forming, fragile but persistent. She found comfort in his presence, and in turn, seemed to enjoy her company in a genuine way. One rainy afternoon, they found themselves sheltering under the same awning, waiting for the storm to pass. The rain created a rhythm on the metal roof above them, and for a moment, silence settled comfortably between them. She noticed how natural it felt to just be near someone, without words, without expectations. She felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't recognized in months. It was not overwhelming or frightening. It was gentle, like sunlight on skin after a long winter at home. She began tending to small routines that gave her life structure. She cooked meals for herself, experimented with new recipes, and even started cleaning the corners of her apartment she had neglected. Each act, however minor, felt empowering. She discovered that caring for her surroundings and herself was part of healing. It was not about forgetting the past, but creating a space where she could live again without being dominated by grief. Evenings became times of reflection. She would sit by the window, listening to music that resonated with her mood. Sometimes she wrote letters she never intended to send, expressing feelings she had buried for too long. Occasionally, she called old friends she had pushed away, reconnecting and sharing laughs that had been absent from her life. These moments reminded her that connection, in all its forms, was a balm for the soul. One weekend, she decided to take a short trip to a nearby town, just to breathe fresh air and change her surroundings. The town was small, with cobblestone streets and colorful houses. She wandered through local markets, tried new foods, and even joined a small art workshop. She met people along the way, sharing stories and laughs. For the first time in months, she felt fully alive, aware that life still held surprises and delights. She realized that stepping out of her routine, even briefly, had opened new doors of possibility. The man from the market joined her on a few outings. They explored the town together, sharing quiet moments and discovering new places. Their bond deepened, though neither rushed it. She felt a sense of companionship that was different from anything she had experienced since her loss. There was no pressure, no expectation, just shared experiences and mutual respect. She began to see that relationships could grow naturally, without forcing emotions or denying past pain. At work, she noticed a shift in herself. She was more present, more engaged, and more confident in her interactions. She offered help willingly, listened attentively, and even initiated small projects that allowed her creativity to shine. Her colleagues noticed the change and responded positively, further reinforcing her sense of belonging. The world, once overwhelming and distant, was starting to feel like a place where she could actively participate again. During quiet moments at home, she reflected on the journey so far. The pain of her past loss was still a part of her, but it no longer dictated every thought or feeling. She was learning to carry it with grace, allowing herself to experience happiness and hope alongside it. The realization was freeing. She understood that life was not about erasing grief, but about embracing all its layers while still finding moments of light. One evening, she found herself sitting by the river, the man beside her. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water. They spoke about their dreams, hopes, and fears, and for the first time she felt completely at ease sharing herself. There was no judgment, no expectation, only a gentle understanding that seemed to deepen their connection. She realized that healing was not just about moving on. It was about allowing oneself to be seen, truly and without pretense. As spring progressed, she noticed subtle changes within herself. Her laughter returned more freely. Her smiles were genuine, and she felt a renewed sense of curiosity about the world. The small routines, the moments of connection, and the gentle encouragement of new relationships had begun to reshape her life. She no longer felt like a prisoner of sorrow. She felt like a participant in her own story. Even the moments of solitude, once filled with despair, became opportunities for reflection and growth. She embraced her thoughts and emotions without fear, learning to navigate the complexities of grief and joy simultaneously. The candle by her window, once a symbol of loneliness, now represented resilience and hope. She would light it each evening, a quiet reminder that life, in all its beauty and pain, was worth experiencing. She began exploring new hobbies, attending workshops, and even volunteering occasionally. Each activity allowed her to meet new people, share skills, and feel a sense of purpose. She discovered that giving and receiving support was not a sign of weakness, but a way to connect more deeply with herself and others. Her days were no longer marked by the absence of someone she had lost, but by the presence of opportunities to grow and engage with life. One night, after a long day, she sat with her notebook and reflected on the journey. She wrote about the encounters that had sparked change, the people who had offered kindness, and the small victories that had rebuilt her confidence. She realized that life was a series of moments, and each choice, no matter how minor, could shape the path forward. She felt gratitude for the pain that had taught her resilience and for the connections that had reminded her of joy. The bond with the man grew stronger, not through grand gestures, but through simple, meaningful interactions. They shared laughter, quiet walks, and moments of silence that spoke volumes. She felt trust and comfort, and in turn, she offered the same. The relationship was not rushed or forced. It developed naturally, built on mutual respect and understanding. She began to see that love, in its purest form, was gentle and nurturing, capable of coexisting with past sorrow. By the end of this period, she felt a profound shift in her life. She was no longer defined solely by loss, but by the strength she had found in herself and the connections she had nurtured. She recognized that healing was ongoing, but she was no longer afraid of the journey. Each day brought new possibilities, small joys, and opportunities for growth. In the quiet of her apartment, she lit the candle by the window and watched the city lights shimmer in the night. She felt a sense of peace she had not known in months. The world, once heavy and isolating, now felt alive and welcoming. She understood that life was not about avoiding pain, but about embracing it alongside hope, connection, and the possibility of love. And in that understanding, she discovered a strength and serenity that hinted at the chapters yet to come. The air had grown warmer, and summer was just around the corner. She woke up early, the sunlight spilling across the room. And for the first time in months, she felt anticipation rather than dread. Life had changed gradually, subtly, but profoundly. The pain of her past still lingered, like a faint shadow, but she had learned to walk alongside it without being consumed. She was discovering strength she had not known she possessed. One day, she received an unexpected message from someone from her past. It was a person connected to the loss she had carried so heavily. For a moment, her chest tightened, and memories she thought she had contained surged forward. She hesitated, staring at the screen, unsure whether to respond. But something within her whispered that confronting this part of her past could help her heal. Further, she arranged to meet the person in a quiet cafe. When they sat down, the conversation was tense at first. Words were careful, measured, and full of unspoken emotions. Memories were revisited, moments of misunderstanding examined. At times she felt the old ache returning, but she was surprised by her own composure. She realized she could acknowledge the pain without letting it control her as the meeting progressed. She spoke openly about her feelings, her sorrow, and the lessons she had learned. The person across from her listened, and for the first time, she felt a sense of closure. There were no dramatic declarations or instant forgiveness, just understanding and acknowledgement. The encounter ended with a quiet nod, a handshake, and a sense that a chapter of her life was finally closing. She stepped out into the sunlight, breathing deeply, feeling lighter than she had in months. In the days that followed, she noticed the change within herself. She no longer recoiled at memories or avoided places that reminded her of the past. Instead, she approached them with a sense of calm and acceptance. She walked through streets that once held sorrowful echoes, visited cafes that were tinged with memories, and even smiled when familiar songs played in the background. Life was beginning to feel manageable again. Her friendship with the man from the market continued to deepen. They spent more time together, exploring the city, sharing meals, and discussing dreams and fears. She realized that she felt safe with him, not because he could erase her pain, but because he offered understanding and companionship. Their connection was built on trust, patience, and the willingness to be present without judgment. One evening, they attended a small art exhibition together. She wandered through the gallery, taking in the colors, textures, and stories behind each piece. He followed her quietly, occasionally commenting or asking questions. At one point, she paused in front of a painting that depicted loss and hope intertwined. The emotions it evoked were powerful, but she no longer felt overwhelmed. Instead, she appreciated the layers of meaning, seeing reflection of her own journey. After the exhibition, they walked along the river. The water shimmered in the evening light, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. She felt a sense of serenity she had not known for a long time. Their conversation drifted from art to life, to hopes, to fears. She realized that sharing herself so openly had not made her vulnerable in a harmful way, but had created a bond that was meaningful and comforting. Meanwhile, she continued nurturing herself and her surroundings. She planted a small garden on her balcony, tending to flowers and herbs that brought life and color to her apartment. Each day, she observed their growth and found joy in small achievements. Cooking became a meditative practice, and she began experimenting with recipes, discovering new flavors, and sharing meals with friends and neighbors. These simple acts reinforced the sense that she was reclaiming her life. During this time, she also faced moments of doubt. Occasionally, she would feel the weight of old fears, the lingering shadows of grief. She learned to recognize these feelings without letting them define her. Meditation, walks, and reflective journaling became tools to navigate these challenges. She discovered that acknowledging vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but a step toward resilience. A turning point arrived when she encountered a situation that tested her growth. A reminder of the past anniversary, a message, or a place provoked a wave of emotions. She felt anger, sadness, and longing all at once. But instead of retreating, she faced the moment with courage. She allowed herself to feel fully, expressing her emotions through tears and words, then letting them go. The release was cathartic, and she emerged feeling stronger. More in control of her inner world, her relationships outside of this one friendship flourished as well. She reconnected with friends she had neglected, attended social gatherings, and even joined a small community group focused on creativity and personal growth. She found fulfillment in giving support to others while receiving it in return. Life became a balance of connection, reflection, and action. Each reinforcing her healing process, she noticed subtle shifts in her perception of love. She realized that love was not about replacing what she had lost, nor was it about seeking perfection. It was about trust, patience, mutual respect, and the ability to share life's moments, both ordinary and extraordinary. The man from the market embodied these qualities, and their interactions provided a safe space for her to explore these feelings. She understood that the foundation of love was not absence of pain, but the capacity to carry it together. One evening, she prepared a small dinner for them at her apartment. The table was simple, adorned with candles and flowers she had grown herself. They shared the meal, laughing and exchanging stories about their days. She noticed how comfortable she felt in his presence, how natural it was to be herself. The fear that had once dominated her interactions had largely faded, placed by a quiet confidence and sense of belonging. As summer unfolded, she continued to embrace life with intentionality. She explored new hobbies, visited museums and parks, and participated in local events. Each experience reinforced the idea that life could hold beauty alongside sorrow. She learned to savor moments fully, to be present without rushing, and to appreciate the small details that made life rich and meaningful. Her reflections at night became more hopeful. Sitting by the window with a journal in hand, she would write about her progress, the people who had impacted her life, and the lessons learned. Gratitude became a regular practice, helping her focus on what she had gained rather than solely on what was lost. She discovered that gratitude and reflection were powerful tools for emotional resilience and personal growth. The bond with the man from the market began to shift subtly from friendship to something deeper. It was not sudden or dramatic, but a quiet recognition of affection, trust, and shared experience. They both acknowledged the importance of their connection without rushing it, understanding that love built on patience and respect had the potential to endure. She felt ready to embrace this possibility, recognizing that it was not a replacement for the past, but a continuation of her journey toward healing. During this period, she also became more confident in her independence. She traveled alone for short trips, pursued personal projects, and engaged in creative endeavors. She realized that her happiness was not dependent solely on others, but on her ability to nurture herself, make choices aligned with her values, and find meaning in everyday life. The balance between connection and independence became a cornerstone of her growth. A pivotal moment arrived when she faced a choice that tested her courage. An opportunity to collaborate on a meaningful project presented itself, but it required stepping out of her comfort zone. She hesitated, recalling past insecurities and fears of failure. However, she chose to embrace the challenge, drawing on the confidence she had built over months of personal growth. The experience was rewarding, providing a sense of accomplishment and reinforcing the belief that she could face challenges with resilience. Through all these experiences, she maintained a conscious awareness of her past pain. She understood that grief was a part of her story, but it no longer dictated her present or future. She could honor her memories while allowing herself to experience joy, connection, and love. This balance was delicate but achievable, and she felt proud of the progress she had made. As the summer evenings grew longer, she and the man spent more time exploring nature, sharing quiet conversations, and creating memories. Their bond continued to grow organically, a testament to the power of trust, patience, and understanding. She felt safe allowing herself to be vulnerable, knowing that the connection was built on mutual respect and genuine care. By the end of this chapter in her life, she had reached a point of remarkable transformation. She faced the past with courage, embraced the present with awareness, and looked toward the future with hope. The pain that had once consumed her was still present, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it coexisted with love, joy, and connection, creating a rich tapestry of human experience. In the quiet of her apartment one evening, she lit the candles she had placed around her home, reflecting on the journey so far. Each flame symbolized resilience, hope, and the ability to embrace life fully. She understood that the path forward would not always be easy, but she was equipped with the strength, insight, and relationships needed to navigate it. Pain had shaped her, but it no longer held power over her life. And in that realization, she discovered the courage to allow love to grow. The first morning of summer arrived with a soft breeze that carried the scent of blooming flowers into her apartment. She woke early, feeling rested and alive in a way she had not felt for a long time. The months of grief, reflection, and slow healing had shaped her into someone more resilient, yet more open to the possibilities life could offer. She smiled as she made her way to the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the floor, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The days now held a rhythm that balanced work, personal time, and meaningful connections. She met the man from the market regularly, their friendship growing deeper with each encounter. Sometimes they explored the city, sometimes they simply sat in a cafe, enjoying quiet conversation. Their connection was gentle but profound, built on understanding, patience, and shared experiences. She realized that this was what she had been missing all along, companionship that neither rushed nor demanded, but simply existed in harmony with her life. One morning, they decided to take a long walk along the river. The water shimmered under the rising sun, and the birds sang joyfully in the trees. As they strolled side by side, she felt a sense of peace she had never known. It was not the absence of pain that brought her comfort, but the presence of life and connection that made her heart feel full again. She could carry the memories of the past without being weighed down by them, and she understood that joy and grief could coexist. At home, she continued to nurture herself and her surroundings. Her small balcony garden thrived in the summer sun, each plant a reminder of her patience and care. Cooking became a creative outlet, and she experimented with new recipes, delighting in the flavors and the process. Each evening, she lit candles around the apartment, creating a space of warmth and reflection. These rituals grounded her, giving her a sense of stability and peace. Her friends noticed the change as well. Conversations flowed naturally, laughter returned, and she felt a renewed sense of belonging. She reconnected with people she had once pushed away, sharing stories, meals, and moments of joy. The combination of old friendships and new connections created a rich tapestry of support and love in her life. She realized that relationships, when nurtured with care, were a powerful source of healing. One evening, she and the man prepared a meal together. They laughed as they cooked, tasting sauces and adjusting flavors. The act of creating something together, simple yet meaningful, deepened their bond. She felt a quiet contentment, a recognition that love could grow naturally through shared moments and mutual respect. It was not about grand gestures or declarations, but about presence, understanding, and care. Summer brought with it opportunities for exploration. They visited nearby towns, strolled through art galleries, and attended small local events. Each experience was filled with discovery, connection, and the joy of being fully present. She found that stepping out of routine, embracing spontaneity, and sharing experiences with someone who respected her past and supported her growth made life richer and more vibrant. During these adventures, she also took time for introspection. She wrote in her journal about the journey she had traveled, the depths of grief, the slow emergence of hope, and the gentle unfolding of love. Reflection allowed her to appreciate the progress she had made, the strength she had found within herself, and the resilience that had carried her through the darkest days. She realized that healing was not linear, but a process of accepting life's complexities and embracing growth wherever it appeared. One afternoon, while walking through a park filled with children playing and families enjoying the sunshine, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. The world seemed alive and full of possibility. She understood that she had reclaimed her ability to experience joy fully. Memories of the past still surfaced, but they no longer controlled her. She could honor them, learn from them, and still step confidently into the present. Her connection with the man evolved naturally into something deeper, though neither labeled it prematurely. They shared dreams, hopes, and quiet moments of reflection. Trust and affection grew organically, providing a foundation for a potential future together. She felt ready to embrace love again, not as a replacement for what she had lost, but as an addition to a life that had become vibrant and full once more. One evening, they sat by the river as the sun set, casting a golden glow over the water. The warmth of the day lingered in the air, and she felt a deep sense of peace. They spoke of small things, books, art, memories from childhood, but each conversation strengthened their bond. She realized that the love she now felt was patient and enduring, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than urgency or desperation. It was a love that could coexist with her past and support her future. As the summer nights stretched long and warm, she continued to nurture herself and her relationships. She discovered joy in simple acts, preparing meals, tending to her garden, reading, writing, and sharing time with those she cared about. Life had regained its color, and each day brought new opportunities for connection, growth, and discovery. She no longer feared the shadows of the past. They were part of her story, but they did not define her. She also began contributing to her community in small ways, volunteering for local events and helping neighbors with tasks when she could. These acts of kindness brought her satisfaction and reinforced the sense of belonging she had been rebuilding. She understood that living fully meant not only caring for herself, but also contributing positively to the world around her. The months unfolded with laughter, reflection, and moments of quiet wonder. She and the man continued to explore life together, learning about each other and themselves. Their bond was a testament to patience, empathy, and shared experiences. It was not rushed or forced, but evolved naturally, reflecting the depth of understanding that comes from healing and emotional maturity. She often reflected on how far she had come. From the depths of grief and isolation, she had gradually reclaimed her life. She could now face memories of the past without fear, embrace the present with awareness, and look forward to the future with hope. Pain had shaped her, but it no longer held dominion over her heart. She had learned that resilience, connection, and self-care could coexist with sorrow, allowing her to live fully. One special evening, they watched the stars from her balcony. The city lights sparkled below, and the night air was filled with the scent of flowers. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts and dreams. She felt a sense of belonging and love that was gentle, enduring, and free of pressure. She understood that love was not about filling a void, but about sharing life's journey with someone who honored both her past and her growth. By the end of this chapter, she had arrived at a place of balance and serenity. Life was no longer defined solely by the loss she had endured. Instead, it was filled with meaningful connections, personal growth, and the gentle beginnings of love. She had learned to carry her past with grace, embrace the present with awareness, step into the future with hope. The candle she lit each evening was more than a source of light. It symbolized her journey, her resilience, and her openness to life. She understood that endings were not always final, and that where pain ended, love could begin. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that she had reclaimed her life and discovered the capacity to experience joy, trust, and love once more. She closed her journal that night, the soft glow of the candle reflecting her calm, determined face. Life had tested her, challenged her, and at times broken her, but it had also guided her toward healing and growth. The pain she had carried was no longer a chain, but a reminder of her strength and resilience. And in its place, love had begun to grow, gently, steadily, and beautifully. She felt ready for whatever came next, knowing that she could face it with courage, hope, and an open heart. The summer was fading into a soft, golden autumn. The air carried the scent of fallen leaves, and mornings had a crispness that hinted at change. She woke with a quiet sense of anticipation, not for a dramatic event, but for the gentle continuation of the life she had been carefully rebuilding. The months of growth, connection, and reflection had shaped her into someone aware, resilient, and open to new experiences. The man who had quietly become a part of her life walked beside her that morning as they strolled through a park filled with orange and red leaves. Their conversation was easy, flowing from childhood memories to dreams for the future, from art to small jokes that made her laugh. She felt a warmth she had not experienced for a long time, a quiet assurance that someone could walk beside her in life without overshadowing her own journey. Back at home, she continued nurturing her daily routines, which had become a blend of self-care and personal growth. Her balcony garden thrived despite the cooler weather, and she found joy in tending to the plants and watching the changing seasons. Cooking remained a creative outlet, and she often experimented with recipes that brought comfort and delight. These small, intentional actions reminded her of her own strength and the beauty in caring for herself and her surroundings. One day, she received an invitation to participate in a local community project, an opportunity to help others while contributing her creativity. She hesitated at first, recalling times when she had withdrawn from the world, but the lessons of the past months encouraged her to accept. She joined the project, finding fulfillment in collaboration, and seeing her work bring joy to others, and in the sense of purpose it offered. It reinforced her belief that engagement with life and community could coexist with personal healing. As autumn deepened, she noticed subtle shifts in herself. She no longer reacted with fear to memories of the past. Instead, she could acknowledge them, feel them, and let them pass without being consumed. The pain had softened, its edges rounded by months of reflection and gentle growth. She realized that strength did not mean the absence of vulnerability, but the ability to move forward despite it. Her bond with the man deepened through shared experiences, quiet conversations, and moments of mutual understanding. One afternoon, they visited a local art gallery together. She wandered through the exhibits, absorbing the colors and stories behind each piece, while he followed, offering comments that were insightful and thoughtful. Their interactions were natural, unhurried, and filled with genuine interest in each other's perspectives. She realized that trust and love could be built slowly, with patience and care. In the evenings, she often reflected on her journey in her journal. Writing had become a daily ritual, a way to explore thoughts and emotions that she could not always voice. She wrote about the challenges she had faced, the moments of joy that had reappeared, and the growth that had taken root in her life. Each entry reinforced her understanding that healing was a continuous process, one that required attention, patience, and courage. Occasionally, she would face reminders of her past, moments that could have triggered sorrow or fear. Perhaps it was a song, a familiar place, or a sudden memory. But she approached these moments differently now. She allowed herself to feel, to acknowledge the lingering pain, and then to let it flow without holding on to it. The strength she had cultivated over the months enabled her to face these instances with grace, turning potential setbacks into opportunities for deeper understanding of herself. The man became a steady presence in her life, not as a replacement for the past, but as a partner in the ongoing journey of life. They shared ordinary moments that were extraordinary in their simplicity, walking along leaf-strewn streets, preparing meals together, or enjoying a quiet evening on the balcony. Through these moments, she discovered that love was not always about grand gestures. It was about presence, patience, and the quiet affirmation that someone cared deeply. During this time, she also renewed connections with friends and family she had kept at a distance. She realized that her capacity for empathy and understanding had grown, allowing her to engage more fully and openly with the people around her. Conversations were more meaningful, laughter more genuine, and the sense of belonging stronger. She appreciated the richness of these connections and understood that they contributed to her ongoing healing. Autumn brought new adventures. She and the man explored nearby towns, wandered through markets, visited museums, and attended small cultural events. Each experience was filled with discovery, curiosity, and the joy of shared moments. She felt alive in a way she had not for years, fully aware that life could offer beauty and excitement alongside the lessons of past sorrow. One chilly evening, they sat by a riverside, wrapped in warm scarves and sipping hot tea. The city lights reflected on the water, creating a shimmering path of gold and silver. She spoke about her fears and hopes, her past experiences and lessons learned. He listened with care, responding with understanding and empathy. In that moment, she felt a deep sense of trust and belonging. The love she experienced was patient, enduring, based on mutual respect rather than urgency. At home, she continued her nightly rituals. The candles she lit each evening, once a symbol of resilience and hope, now represented a life rebuilt. She wrote in her journal, reflected on her day, and acknowledged both the challenges and triumphs. Each night she recognized that healing was not a destination, but a journey. One she could navigate with awareness, strength, and the support of meaningful relationships. Her personal projects and hobbies flourished. She created art, wrote, and experimented with new skills that brought satisfaction and pride. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, reinforced her sense of agency and capability. She understood that life's richness came from a combination of self-care, personal growth, and connection with others. The relationship with the man continued to evolve organically. They discovered shared interests, supported each other's goals, and built a foundation of trust and companionship. She felt ready to embrace the deeper possibilities of love, knowing that it was grounded in understanding and mutual respect.